Today's guest grew up chasing brook trout on a Pennsylvania stream right out her front door. But it wasn't until a solo road trip, a forerunner, and a Craigslist fly rod that fly fishing truly stuck. These days, Mckenzie Johns is all about helping more women get outside, whether that's on the river exploring back roads with rooftop tents or building confidence through home fitness. By the end of this episode, you'll hear how Mckenzie navigated the early intimidation of fly shops, why a solo rooftop tent setup is a game changer on road trips, and how a size 18 perdigon quickly became her go-to fly. This is the Wet Fly Swing podcast, where I show you the best places to travel to for fly fishing, how to find the best resources and tools to prepare for that big trip, and what you can do to give back to fish species we all love. Mckenzie is here today to share her favorite fly patterns, the ups and downs of learning to cast, and what it's like fishing with her dad again. We're going to get some simple tips on fitness habits that completely change the game in the outdoors. And we're going to get some simple tips on fitness and some habits that'll help you stay fit and stay more active out there this year. Here we go. You can find Mckenzie at MTN Johns on Instagram. How you doing, Mckenzie?
I'm great. How are you, Dave?
I'm great. Yeah, this is going to be a fun one today. I think I always love getting into podcasts where they're not exactly all fly fishing, tips and tricks. And I think today we're going to talk not only fly fishing because you're into that, but also Intrepid Camp Gear. We're going to talk about some of your background with, inspiring women to get outdoors, also some fitness, which is, again, a big struggle for me. But let's take it back to fly fishing first. We always love to start there. How'd you get into fly fishing? Are you new to it or have you been doing this a while?
Yeah, so I would say my background with fly fishing is less than glamorous. So I grew up around fly fishing. My dad is an angler. He would be proud to be mentioned on this podcast right now. He's currently sleeping though. But, he's been an angler for a really long time, and I was exposed to fly fishing as a young girl. But, of course, I wanted to do ballet and the girly things and everything. And so, after getting a fly rod in my hand a little bit, I was like, oh, Dad, I don't know if this is for me. But I do remember we would go on some, pretty awesome family trips, like out into the lakes and rivers in Pennsylvania. I'm originally from the East Coast. And we also had this little brook trout stream right in front of our house. And so my dad would take us down to the stream and we would just throw a fly rod down there. And I had no finesse. I didn't know what I was doing. And I'm just like, all right, Dad, I'm not catching anything. What the heck? And so, that's kind of my first introduction to fly fishing. And then about 7, 8 years ago, a previous partner of mine decided to dive 2000% into fly fishing. He had never fly fished before. And he was gone every single weekend. And I was like, wow, I guess if I ever want to see you again, I have to fly fish. Picked up some gear on Craigslist, and early spring of 2017, 2018, I can't remember, we went down to Deckers, Colorado, which is a very well-known fly fishing area, and I caught my first trout, and it was like the most incredible feeling ever. And I was like, oh wow, I think I'm actually hooked on this. This is so much fun. And so we just began doing that, every weekend, any opportunity we could. We ended up getting a fly fishing craft and would take that on the Colorado River. And really, it just became this huge lifestyle for me. Parting ways, and still it's this big focus in my life. There's just nothing like being out on the river, on still water, and just and even on days when you're not catching anything, it's still like you're in these incredible beautiful places, and you really just can't complain about any day on the water.
No, that's what we all love about fly fishing, right? We talk about the fly fishing, but it's really not about that. It's about everything else, along with it. I love that with your dad, early on, because my daughter is, she's, I guess, 11 now, which is crazy. I've never really put a lot of pressure on her, although I've always, she has a fly rod and stuff. But it's great to hear because I feel like even though she's not totally into it, I've planted the seed, and then at some point she might get into it. So it sounds like that's how it happened for you, and now you're kind of addicted to it. Is that kind of how it looks?
Yeah, that's totally it. And actually, I'm up here in Canmore, Alberta, with my family. My little brother got married a couple days ago, and so my dad and I are actually going to go out together. We haven't fished together since 2019 when he came to visit me in Colorado. So we're going to go do some exploring today and hit up some of the lakes above Canmore. So it's just a great little bonding experience where, we can take both of our passions and just, even if we're sitting in silence for, 10 hours, it's still just this incredible feeling of being able to just, be with my dad, and we're both doing something that we love.
Love that. Love that. Yeah, we're just getting ready to build out a big event to Alberta. We're looking at the Bow River. I'm not sure if that's close to where you're at. That's in Calgary, I guess.
I actually drove by the Bow River on my drive out to Canmore, and it is stunning. It is absolutely stunning.
Sweet. Yeah, we had one of our guides, or kind of our head guide that's running the going to help put together the trip. He had this thing when he first started guiding on the Bow River to separate him, his marketing thing to separate himself. He said, basically, if you come on my trip, I will guarantee you, I think it was like a fish over 20
Oh my
inches,
goodness.
or your money back, or your money
Wow, that's a
back.
big promise.
I know, and it worked. And he said he pretty much on the bow was able to do that. I think there was only a couple of people in like 10 years that ever had to get their money back,
Wow,
right?
wow.
So it's pretty cool. But so awesome. So this is it. So you're out there and you have all of this other stuff going, as well, just the outdoors, the women. And then in Intrepid. So, and I want to talk about all of this, but maybe let's start with Intrepid because I think that is a piece that I'm really interested in. I think travel is big because we're doing a big road trip and you're kind of like, you don't really want to maybe pull a camper, but you don't want to like put your tent up every time. Talk about, let's just start off right at the top from Intrepid. What is it that you have there with them? Is this something you're using a lot?
Yeah, so this is actually, so I was on the road prior to landing in Canmore. I was on the road for 8 days from Colorado. I was driving through Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, up here to Canada. And I will say, like, putting this Intrepid set to the test, it's like the most ideal setup for my lifestyle. So on I have a 2024 runner, and on top of her, I have the 190 cargo box, which is on the driver's side. And then on the passenger side, I have the Solo Geo tent. And it's so funny because, people drive by and they're like, that tent, it only takes up half your car. Like, what's going on there? And I'm like, oh, it's the Solo tent. It's built for one person, but me and my little blue healer fit in there perfectly with plenty of room. And just being able to like not only have the tent on top of the Forerunner, but additionally the cargo box where I can store just a lot of the stuff that I'm not using every single day, like, maybe my fly fishing gear, like I wasn't fishing through Wyoming, so I stored my fly fishing gear up there, and just like stuff that I don't need immediately has just made the camping experience so much more organized, which is huge for me because I'm very anal with how everything is packed and how I can access everything. And just the ease of use, being able to roll up into camp. I quickly unlock the tent and boom, it's set up. It just made the whole like road tripping, camping experience just a lot more enjoyable as opposed to having to unload the entire car and set up my tent. And it's this whole process, which that's nostalgic in a way, but I would say, in my 30s, I'm looking for something fast and easy and just helping me stay organized, especially, when I was on the road for 8 days. It's such an ideal setup for, the solo female traveler, I will say. And, it's been funny. I was staying in Glacier National Park for a couple of days, and some folks, came over to my campsite and they're like, what is going on top of your car? Like, can you explain this? And I'm like, absolutely. And they're like, it's so cool. I've never seen a setup where you can have a rooftop tent and a cargo box at the same time. So, it's mostly ideal for, a certain kind of person. A lot of people are like, oh, I prefer to have the two-person tent because what if you get a partner down the road? And I'm like, well, I'll worry about that when I need to worry about it. Like, but it's not a problem right now. And so, and then I think, the ease of use is big for me. There were a couple of nights where I did have to disperse camp and, weren't sure if those locations were going to be available, what things were actually going to look like because the internet only tells you so much and everything. And so I actually ended up rolling up right before I drove out to Glacier. I was camping along the North Fork of the Flathead, and just being able to roll up. I literally camped right next to the river, and just waking up inside my tent and just like having that kind of view in the morning was just absolutely, absolutely magical. But, I rolled up at, probably 10 o'clock at night. There was very little light out. And so being able to just set everything up so quickly and efficiently and crawling right into bed was like so key, especially, for being a solo female traveler. Like I want something fast and easy to use, especially if I do feel uncomfortable in a situation and I can kind of get out of there quickly too if I need it.
And I'm looking at some pictures on Intrepid Camp Gear. We'll put a link in the show notes to this, but it's cool. Yeah, I mean, it's got the doors. It looks like you've got doors on both sides. You can kind of look out at there's a picture here looking out at the mountains.
There's the two doors on the side, and then how I have it on the back side where it like opens up to that like kind of really big tall space. There's another door actually, and it opens to like a kind of like a plastic vinyl. So like I can have a view without having like the tent fully exposed to air, or I can also roll that up and there's also another screen there. So you have doors on all three sides, which is so cool. So you can get that like full view, which has been so crucial for this trip because I've been camping in some really amazing places.
Yeah, this is great. I think we'll put some links out, like we said, and folds down. The cool thing about these too is that it folds down into basically just I don't know what you call it, but it's a tight box, right? It completely, yeah. But how long, talk about the pop-up. What does it take? So you get there at camp, how long does it take to get this thing popped up and like in there sleeping?
I mean, like popped up and like in there sleeping, I would say like max 2 minutes just because I got to throw all of my sleep gear in there. But I mean, popping it up, it takes like 30 seconds or less. You know, you just unlatch both sides because it's weather sealed. So you just unlock it, unlatch it, you push it up, it opens by itself. And then there's a U bar that opens. So you can kind of see how it like comes out beyond the box area. So there's like a U bar that creates that additional headspace. And then there's actually a skylight right there too, that you can open and close. So I've had that open because the stars have just been incredible. So yeah, actually setting up the physical tent, I would say, under a minute, about 30 seconds, I think is the fastest I've been able to do it. And then, probably about like max 2 minutes just to get all my sleep gear and everything in there.
Nice. And obviously Intrepid has different, bigger rooftop tents as well, right? So you can get the big things and then also the boxes. That's one thing on the last giveaway we did with Intrepid. They gave away one of their, I guess they're aluminum cargo cases where you can kind of put your rods and anything. Is that what you have there?
Yeah, yep. I have the 190 cargo box and it is awesome. I mean, I use it for all seasons. This past winter, I was using it for all my ski gear, which is great. You can keep those wet skis up and out of the area, of your vehicle. It has like a little drainage system too, specifically for that. So if you have like any, kind of like gross elements or anything in there, it'll drain itself out, which is pretty cool. But yeah, for this road trip, just being able to store kind of some stuff that I don't need immediate use and just kind of keeping things out of the way and more organized. It's been so helpful. They also have other things that you can like put inside the box for organizational purposes too. I just have the bare box, which has been so perfect for me in my setup. But it's great because you can literally use it for anything and everything. And just again, I'm huge on organization and just ease of use. And the cargo box is it's so great, and it's very sleek looking too. It looks really good on top of the car.
Yeah, that's it. Perfect. Nice. Well, that's a good little intro to Intrepid, and we'll, like we said, get a link out there, and we'll probably follow up with this later in the episode. But I wanted to also today talk about some on obviously fly fishing, and maybe even get into some on fitness and all that. But let's go into fly fishing. So, what was it like? So you've got kind of had a little taste of it early, and then you go all in on it. What was it like? How did you go from kind of getting started, kind of that 101? How did you get your first fish, and then how are you doing now? How are you learning basically?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I will say I did lean heavily on my partner at the time because I had no idea what I was doing. I'd listened to some of the, Orvis podcasts and, watch some YouTube videos and stuff because I'm a very visual learner. I need to be able to, see how people are casting and how people are tying knots and all that kind of stuff. And I did do a lot of like my own research and everything. But when we were out on the water, I would be able to ask my partner questions. But it did get to a point where I'm like, okay, I've got the knowledge. I just need to do this. I just need to execute this. And the more time I have on the water, the more it's just going to make sense to me. And I think that honestly, the biggest hurdle, and I feel like a lot of people can say this too, is the casting, right? I feel like my first couple months out on the water, I just win knot after win knot after win knot. And it was brutal. And I was like, do I actually enjoy doing this? Do I really like doing this? And so, once I was able to actually get the casting down, it's funny, first, I actually learned how to fly fish on a Euro-nymphing rig. So you're not even really casting
That was your
actually.
first. So your first time was actually Euro-nymphing. That was your
Euro-nymphing
first.
got my first
Oh,
fish.
wow.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, this isn't too bad. And then when I actually started, traditional fly fishing, I was like, okay, this feels a lot harder. There's more finesse involved.
Because the Euro-nymph, you're actually not. We've talk about that occasionally, right? You're not really casting a fly line, so it's kind of different.
Yep, it's definitely different. And so, getting used to casting and just being out on open water where I can, cast a little bit more confidently without getting stuck on, brush and trees and all that kind of stuff. And really, I think, just the biggest thing for me in my first year fly fishing was just the time out on the water and just being able to, go touch different kind of water too, big rivers, small streams, little alpine lakes, big rivers that, I would float. And so being able to just, have exposure to different types of water helped me understand, where the trout are also sitting in the water too. And I don't have a huge background on the science and everything like that. If you sat my dad down here, he could fully go into, all the details there. But, I feel like I call it, intuitive fishing, where I'm like, I feel like the fish are here and I feel like this is what they're eating. And it works most of the time. I have some friends of actually another women group that I partner with in Colorado. They're called Uncharted Women Outdoors. And actually, the owner, she's funny. She's like, I just love throwing purple. I just love throwing purple, and it works so well for me. And I'm like, all right, Erin. We each have our, our own thing. And so, of course, I have my go-to bugs and everything. And, if it doesn't work, you just tie on another one and see what happens. But, and then I have some, some other folks that I fished with before that, are really like, okay, what's the hatch today? They're, picking up the rocks and inspecting everything. And so, it's interesting to, fish with the two different kind of parties, the really extreme, like we have to match the hatch versus like, no, this is what I like kind of throwing. So we're going to do this.
Love that. Yeah, I think that again, that's I think what fly fishing, why it's great is that you could go as deep as you want. If you want to become an entomologist, right, you can do that. But I think like you're saying, just staying high level is kind of fun too because you could have your confidence flies and just go with those and probably catch fish, on them. Maybe what are some of those top flies? I'm guessing I could probably guess a few of them, but what are the in your box where you come to this new location up in Canada? What are you thinking? What are those top few flies you have there?
It's so funny. I've done very little research on all the areas that I've fished so far on this trip, and I've been so successful on a size 18 perdigon. I've caught all my fish on a size 18 perdigon. I've also done really well with a flashback hare's ears. I haven't caught anything on top yet. We were talking to some guys at the fly shop, and they're like, it's not quite hopper season yet. And I'm like, I love throwing hoppers though. They said, you got to come back down and or back up here in August, and the hoppers are just wild. But I love throwing hoppers down in Colorado. I'll do a hopper dropper rig usually, nice chunky, chubby Chernobyl on top. And then usually I'll do kind of an egg pattern in the middle and then some sort of bead head. But honestly, like perdigon is just like my go-to for a bottom fly. I get so lucky on it. It's my lucky fly. So
That's awesome. That's so cool. Yeah, we'll put a link into it. We're pretty excited about it. We're actually, Euro-nymphing is a huge topic, obviously, out there. And we have Josh Miller, Josh Miller is actually the coach for Team USA Youth, and they've won the last 2 world championships.
so
and
cool.
he's just this all-star. And he was on the first time he was on the podcast. It was one of those ones where you're just like, oh my God, this guy has it all. But he's going to come on for a webinar and he's going to walk us through kind of how he does the Euro-nymphing. So we're excited about that. But one thing he talked about on the podcast that we did with him, he said that, you don't want that nymph just to sink like a wet, all the way to the bottom quickly. He says the slower it sinks, it gives the fish more time to see it as it's coming through the water column. Right. So I think that's maybe why those perdigons work so well is that they're heavy, they've got the tungsten, but they're, you're not using other weight, right? It's just slowly sinking down. Yeah.
Just the fly itself. Yep.
That's it. Awesome. So the perdigon, are you fishing it now with kind of just a dry line and floating line sort of thing and then nymphing? Or are you using also still like the Euro-nymphing kind of mono stuff?
No, I haven't been actually Euro-nymphing much. My dad wanted to try it out today, so we might give it a shot because the rivers are pretty blown out right now. We just got quite a bit of rain over the past couple of days, and so I don't even know that we're going to have much luck on the rivers. We might need to hit up some lakes, but I've just been doing kind of an indicator with 2 to 3 flies, subsurface and below. And that's been doing pretty well. The rivers have been pretty fast, obviously, because it's, runoff season. And so it's been, a little tricky, but, the indicator has been helpful.
What's your indicator you're using? Are you using like the I'm trying to think of the top ones. Do you have a special one you like, or just whatever you got?
No, I love pink. So it's just easy for me to see. So I just a little pink guy up top is usually what I do. And I actually, where was I in Montana? I had a couple of fish actually go for my indicator, and I was like, guys, what are you doing? That's the wrong one, wrong one.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Nice. Good. So you're going to have a good day. This is really cool to hear. You're up there with your dad. It's been a while, a few, years, and you're fishing together. I mean, and what's your dad? Let's just talk about that for a sec because I know he sounds like he's a diehard. Does he mostly focus on trout, or is he like all over the place travel and doing all that stuff?
No, he mostly focuses on trout. He's from Connecticut, so he'll fish like the Connecticut River and a lot of small streams. He's the kind of guy that'll just keep his fly rod in his truck, and any river that he'll cross by, be like, I've got 15 minutes. I can probably pull a trout out of there. And so, and he's also will just, hike out somewhere, and he'll just be gone for, 10 hours at a time. And it's just, dad doing his thing. He just, he's always talking about, it's funny. We were in Banff yesterday, and we were, hiking to a few lakes, and he was like, "Oh, I see the trout rising." And he's just like, shaking his head like, I should have brought the fly rod. I should have brought the fly rod. And so you can always just catch him by any body of water, and he gets
He's
mesmerized.
in. That's it.
Yep,
See,
you just lose him.
he's
Yep.
diehard. That's so cool. Well, you got to let him know we have another great partner, Pescador on the Fly. They have this 6-piece rod that we've been talking a lot about, and the cool thing about it is that it's 6 pieces, so it packs down. It could literally fit into a normal like a little tiny backpack. And so, yeah, I think he would probably be a good person to, have, because it's like, okay, throw in the backpack and forget about it. It's always there, put your reel on and go for it. Good. So I love where we're going here, because I think that, the family stuff I'm big on that. You know what I mean? I'm always like, I'm trying to, like, we're doing a trip up to Alaska, travel and driving actually. And I'm taking the family, and I got my 2 girls, and, and I'm doing it because it's like literally 2,500 miles, but I'm doing it because partly I want them to experience Alaska, and I want them to see that, even though it's going to be challenging at times, and just like, and kind of what it sounds like you do, right? You're on the road. What is it about the road stuff? Sounds like you do a little bit about that you love most. Is it kind of seeing the site, and and then what would be your tip for somebody doing a long journey on a road to have success?
Yeah, honestly, I think it's just like being able to experience. I live in Colorado, and so it's easy to just kind of, get stuck in Colorado because there's so much to do and see and explore it there alone. I've been there for almost 11 years now, and it's just like I'm still, discovering new places. But then I'm like, hang on, we border Wyoming, which is also incredible, and Montana I absolutely fell in love with. And so I think it's just really being able to, immerse yourselves and, be able to see and experience, not only just, the waters for fly fishing, but like the mountains alone. I'm so in love with the Rocky Mountains, and being, in the middle of the Canadian Rockies now, I'm just staring at these peaks, and they're so like just ominous and beautiful, and it's really incredible. And I highly suggest people, even just going for like, 3-4 hour road trip to just, discover a new place, especially being able to do it by yourself and alone is so empowering. And I think that was so beautiful about, the 8 days prior to me landing in Canada was just, of course I had to do my research to make sure I could keep myself safe and all that kind of stuff. But like I said, waking up on the North Fork of the Flathead, just by myself and having that whole area, and I was like, oh my God, this is just so incredible. We really truly live in this beautiful world, and being able to experience it, just hopping in your car and driving for a few hours is pretty special.
Yeah, just getting out. Cool. And again, that's back to the rooftop tents. That's why it's kind of nice, is that you're always ready to go, right? You don't have to pack a bunch of gear. You pretty much, and you've got the Toyota. You've got the Toyota too, which is another, I'm loving this because one of our big sponsors this year is Toyota. So we have Toyota on board, and I went through a phase of non-Toyotas, and I'm back to Toyota, and I'm so happy because, the Tundra, whatever it is, I'm stoked on it. But so on the Toyota, you have the 4Runner. Are you pretty much in love with that car? Is that something new? Have you been Toyota for a
It's
while?
literally the best car ever. It is the best car. I've been wanting a Toyota, oh my gosh, ever since I was in high school and when I moved out to Colorado, I had a 99 Jeep Cherokee that me and my dad kind of, in a way, rebuilt together. I bought it out of junkyard for like $200.
Oh, wow. Now this is a 99. No, did you say 1999 Jeep Cherokee?
Yep, you got it. Yep.
Oh, this is great. I love it because I'm a big Jeep. This kind of goes back to my family too. I'm a big Jeep guy. But okay, so this is the one. Yeah, these are the Jeeps, the old kind of box style that look like they had the big 4.0 engine.
It was awesome. And so I had that car, oh my gosh, for like 12 years. And I think I drove it for more than 300,000 miles. And, eventually out in Colorado, my dad is a, huge handy mechanic guy, and he was always like, never bring it to a garage. I will fix it for you. But, moving 2,000 miles away, I was like, yeah, Dad, that's not super feasible anymore. And so eventually it's just, because it was so old and, such high mileage, it became a money pit. And so during COVID, I ended up buying a used Subaru Outback, which I won't say too much there, but I will never buy another Subaru.
Yeah, well, let's stop there for a moment because this is what's crazy. So, we don't want to dog on Subaru too bad because there's probably lots of people that love Subarus, and I feel like, but man, I've had some Subarus in my life too. I go back to the story, I've told this one before, I think, but my brother had this Subaru, it was like, I can't remember, I'm dating myself, but it was an old Subaru, right? Back into the, like the 1980s or something like that. I think that's what it was, but it broke down, and I had a couple after that, and it seemed like there was always a overheating thing, right? It was something like radiator thing. What was it that took your Subaru down?
That was literally it. My car overheated, and we were actually out on a river trip, and we were using my Subaru as the shuttle. And just in the middle of nowhere, Colorado, it just started to overheat, and like every light on the dashboard turned on. And I was like, well, that's not good. And ended up taking it in, and I warped the head gaskets and probably spent like $4,000 getting it fixed just to find out that the engine was going at 130,000 miles. And I was like, well, I guess we're buying a Toyota.
What was the year of that Subaru?
It was a 2010, so it wasn't even that old.
Oh, yeah, wow. So it wasn't even that old. So see and that's what blows me away because you look at my experience of whatever the car was, 1985, 1990. I don't remember what it was, but it was an older one. But think of that. In years, it seems like they didn't fix the problem, right? I mean, and Toyota, on the other hand, the great thing about Toyota is I think, right, reliability is a big part of it. I have had Toyotas, I feel like, and there might be some stuff where maybe a lot of the cars are similar, but I just feel like the reliability, as I was talking to Toyota with our partner stuff, I was asking them, like, and they were kind of talking about, well, there's not this cult following with Toyota, but I kind of feel like there is. I feel like people do love Toyota, even though it's not the most expensive car in the world. I feel like there is this cult following. Is that kind of how you feel about it?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I'm in like multiple like Toyota women groups where like, specifically like, it's women from across the nation that we all own forerunners of, various years and generations. And so, and it's actually a really cool space because, we can kind of safely ask each other the questions that we might not normally feel comfortable, maybe asking a dealership or, asking a group with, men in it as well, because we're, might not feel safe asking a certain question. And so, being a part of these groups, Toyota, women that, own Toyotas is pretty cool. And
Is this a Facebook? Is this like a Facebook
group?
Yeah, like a free Facebook group. Is there anything you would ever, I'm not sure if you do the paid groups, but is that something that you would pay for if it had enough value, like some sort of a paid Facebook group for Toyota, or is that kind of
definitely. Absolutely. Yeah. Especially, a space specifically, for women, not to, knock you men at all, but I think.
No, not at all. No, I agree. I think the women, and there's lots of, women on the fly we've had on the podcast. And I think that it's like any group, and we've been told we have our own Wet Fly Swing Pro membership, and I'm always interested in hearing about it because we hear the same thing. What people love about it is that you can go into these paid groups, and it creates a situation where only people that are going to pay are certain, they're people that are your people. And so it's safe. So you can go in there and actually ask questions or even tell whatever you want to, and you don't have to worry about somebody coming in and like spamming you or getting hammered by like whatever that is, right? So I feel like that's why the paid kind of groups are kind of powerful. It's that community. Again, we're all striving for community, right?
Right.
Yeah, good. Okay, so we've got Toyota checked off. We've got the cars. We've got all this. Let's go into fitness because fitness, I think, is one for me. I've always struggled with fitness. Basketball, I had all my sports, but as I get older, I get to that point where, well, like even this week, I'm like, oh man, I should have ran yesterday. I didn't. I took a break. I didn't run. And I feel like it's kind of one of those things where you're thinking, man, I need to do a better job. But what's your take on fitness? First, talk about maybe what your experience is with it, and then we'll get into maybe how people can maybe do some things that are healthier. But what is your, and I know you have your own story,
Yeah,
right?
so my fitness journey actually started right before I moved to Colorado. I was pretty low place in my life. I was, pretty overweight for my small, 5'2" stature, and was just really at a bad place and had a bad relationship with just food and my body. And right before I moved to Colorado, I was doing some hiking up in the White Mountains in New Hampshire. On the other side of me huffing and puffing and hating the ascent on some of these mountains, getting to the top and just having that liberating feeling of like, holy cow, I just climbed this mountain. Like my body just did that. It was like this addictive feeling, but I was like, if I was in better shape, I would actually be able to enjoy the journey more. And so when I moved to Colorado and, much bigger mountains, much longer trails, a bit more strenuous terrain, I was like, wow, I really need to like, you know, really make an adjustment here with my lifestyle and my fitness so I can take on these bigger mountains. And it wasn't just a physical thing for me. It was also that, mental challenge as well. And so I started to really kind of shift just how I approach fitness. And it wasn't, be to, look better in the mirror. It wasn't to, fit into a certain, size pants or whatever. It was literally just so I could enjoy the outdoor space that I moved to start a new life. In Colorado, I moved to Boulder, and I will never forget the day I was hiking up Mount Sanitas, and there was a young mom, and she had a infant, oh my gosh, probably maybe a couple months old, and she was breastfeeding as she was practically running up this mountain. And I'm like, how do I get on that fitness level? And so just kind of being in that culture too, just like really helped me to kind of, shift that mindset of like, oh, everyone out here wants to take care of their bodies for the reason to enjoy the outdoors. So again, I think, kind of changing my environment helped a little bit too, but I realize it's not accessible to everyone. And so, the biggest thing for me was just shifting that mindset of, instead of trying to look a certain way, I wanted to feel a certain way. I wanted to not feel you know dead at the top of a mountain. I wanted to feel like I truly deserved to to be there on top of a 14er. Exactly. And so I was pretty intimidated by gyms in college. I was really big into powerlifting and whatnot, but gyms are kind of a different environment there. And trying to find a gym that, I really liked and wanted to make an effort to go to, and, also not spend, a fortune on as well. It just was very overwhelming. And I came across this opportunity of being able to work out at home. And I was like, can I get in shape working out at home, like just in my living room? Like, is that a thing? And, I started, seeing more people on my social media, women specifically that live in Colorado that, were working out at home to do exactly what I was aiming for, to be able to take on these bigger adventures, to be able to, go hike a mountain, with their kiddos. And, basically like the idea is longevity, right? We want to live these beautiful, strong lives. And, the first step is taking care of yourself. And so I started my home fitness journey back in 2016, 2017. And really, it just not only have I been able to conquer so much physically, but like it also helped me with that mental hurdle that I had. I was, like I mentioned, I was in a really bad place when I first moved out here, and trying to, make a change for myself, and being able to, take on these bigger hikes, these bigger mountains, just really was able to provide a lot of mental clarity and really make me appreciate, the reason why I moved out here. And so over the years, for a few years actually, I was also coaching and trying to inspire women that were kind of in similar situations of me, didn't want to go to a gym, felt really intimidated by going to a gym, but didn't have the maybe quote unquote motivation or dedication to figure out how to do this from their own safe environment at home. So for many years, especially during COVID, really kicked off, and being able to help and guide people on their fitness journeys, to be able to adventure, to be able to explore, the beautiful places that we live in. And again, it's that mental shift of like, I don't want to look a certain way. I want to feel a certain way. I want to be able to, some people it might just be, I want to be able to hike 2 miles without huffing and puffing.
Yeah, exactly. Or get up the stream, or get up the
Yeah.
hike up the stream and do your sounds like your dad does. Is that something that, well, I mean, that's a good question. Like for anybody, what was the thing you did? What was your regiment at home to get you going? Is this something you think anybody can do without, skip the gym and just do a home plan? Not many companies are building their own gear these days, but Intrepid Camp Gear is changing that. Based in Boulder, Colorado, Intrepid designs and manufactures some of the most rugged, technically advanced rooftop tents and aluminum cargo cases on the market. Their gear is built in-house with patented designs that stand up to the elements and the miles. Whether you're chasing elk deep in the backcountry, hunting for fresh powder, or heading out for your next fly fishing trip, Intrepid gives you the confidence to go further. Their rooftop tents keep you warm, dry, and off the ground. Their cargo cases, bomb-proof, weather-tight, and ready for just about anything. So stop settling for flimsy, mass-produced gear. Level up with the gear that's built to last and engineered for real adventure. Go to wetflyswing.com/intrepid right now to get started. That's INTREPID, Intrepid Camp Gear. Get started right now.
Yeah, I mean, just get a couple set of dumbbells and honestly weightlifting. Like it doesn't need to be anything crazy heavy. And I don't know if there's other fitness people that are listening to this that are gonna be like, I'm no certified personal trainer or anything, but weightlifting for anyone, men and women alike, is so important. Also mixing some cardio in there. I will say I hate running. I absolutely hate it. I have a pack with a couple girlfriends where we promised each other for every single week this summer, we're gonna run once a week. And I'm like, okay, that's
Oh,
enough
nice.
for me to handle.
That's doable.
Yes, exactly. But my biggest focus has been weightlifting. And, for the first couple of years in my fitness journey, I wasn't lifting like crazy weights. I think, I had dumbbells from, 5 pounds up to 20 pounds. And that was so sufficient for me, for many years. And it wasn't until recently where, I got my own home gym space and I have more room where I'm like, okay, I'm going to invest in more equipment. But really, you don't need to invest in that much equipment. Getting a few sets of dumbbells and being able to, time under tension is huge. And so I just, using even 10-pound weights for some bicep curls under that time under tension. So using that, 3 count on the down motion. And honestly, like YouTube can be your best friend too. There's some incredible programs out there that you can, if you're like, I don't even know like where to begin. There's a lot of great tools out there, but I will say, you don't need to invest in this whole home gym experience. A yoga mat and a few set of dumbbells is really all you need.
Yeah, that's all. I love that. No, I love that you keep it simple, and then obviously you're out there hiking and doing all that as well. No, this is good. Well, and I also want to touch on, and this all kind of connects together, but kind of the females, fly fishing, and I think probably the biggest thing that we've heard of in recent years is like the 50-50, the Orvis movement, right? To specifically get more women, on the water. What has your experience been out there? Have you, have there been challenges? Have you been into the fly shops? What's it feel like from your perspective? I'm always interested in hearing that.
So I will say it's so different more in the more recent years. When I first started getting into fly fishing, I'll be honest, I hated going into fly shops.
Yeah, what was the worst thing about the fly shop? So you go in there in the early days, right? You go in there, and was it just that, you were kind of like mansplained or whatever, talked down, or what was the worst thing about it?
Mansplained, I would be targeted. They would target me for flies that they couldn't sell, and they would try to sell me some flies that would actually that would not work well for, the terrain and the waters that I would be hitting. They were just trying to sell me something that they couldn't sell to people who knew what they were. Um, I think there was one experience where I will never forget where I was in a fly shop and, I was looking around. I think I was just looking at some tippet or something. I was running low and, clerk comes over and he's like, "Can I help you?" And I was like, "No, I think I'm good. I'm just like, looking for some 5X." And he was like, "Are you sure you should be here?" And I'm like, "What kind of question is that?" And I was like, I just kind of looked at him and like cocked my head like, "Excuse me?" And he was like, "Well, I don't, what are you doing here?" And I just walked out. I just walked out. I said, I don't need to be giving you my business. And I have not gone back to that fly shop ever since. But that was the worst of my experiences. And I have talked to, other women over the recent years, and we've, exchanged our horror stories. But it's gotten so much better. And, there are some, certain fly shops that I will absolutely give my business to because, they, hire women, and they hire, female guides and stuff. And I think it's, and these women have so much knowledge. They're absolutely incredibly knowledgeable people. And, it's so great to see just more inclusivity out there. And like, I had mentioned, so I'm the PR coordinator for Women of Colorado. We're a female-based group in Colorado. We do events and meetups all over the state, and we partner with another female group called Uncharted Women Outdoors, who I'd previously mentioned, another all-female group, and they're all female guides. And so we will partner with them and we'll do like fly fishing 101 classes. Erin, who is the owner, she's just absolutely fantastic and is so huge on, the female inclusivity into like the, fly fishing and the hunting realm as well. And it's so cool to be able to, see more of that happen and, be able to work with these women as well. So we don't feel so unwelcomed in the outdoor space because unfortunately, whereas, we are being more included and it's gotten so much better in the more recent years, there still are some times where, this just happened last summer where I was, fly fishing the Arkansas and some guy came over and he was like, "You fishing upstream?" And I said, "Yep." "So what does he do?" "He just high holes me." And I'm like, "You just asked if I was going to fish there and you still went." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" So as soon as he left, I think this was the most rewarding thing. He didn't catch anything in that spot. So I roamed up there and I caught 8 trout back to back. And he's watching me from the other side of the river. Like, "Are you kidding me?" So, I think just overall it's gotten so much better. And there's more women who are really helping the movement of, providing more inclusive environment in the outdoor space for women, especially, women who want to be more involved in the outdoor space but are feeling so intimidated about it and don't know where to start. And that's where I think, these female run groups are so important for us to be able to lean on because it is a safe space. We don't have to worry about the mansplaining. We are working with professional women who are, professionally trained as,
Or all stars.
exactly, who have the insane knowledge, that can help women, start from with the basic knowledge and work your way up. You don't have to go into a fly shop and buy $1,000 rod as a beginner fly fisher. Like you can go get easy, Walmart setup or
Yeah, anything.
yeah.
And I just heard that Yellow Dog did, and I didn't read this, but one of our listeners told us about Yellow Dog did a series on fly rods, and I think the top 2 rods, I think one was a Winston, but the second one was, I think, the Reddington. Like a very low priced rod was basically equivalent. And so that just shows you, right? It really doesn't matter. Just grab a rod that fits your budget and you're good to go.
Exactly. A few flies, like you don't need to be spending thousands of dollars to get started. And I think that's what can feel so intimidating is, going into these shops and, they're expecting you to, they're trying to give you the top of line stuff. And so like, I haven't even gotten out on the water yet. I don't even know how to tie my knots yet. Like, and so, just being able to, work with more women who make these sports more approachable, especially for beginners, is so important. And being a part of that movement has been so rewarding as well. I will have people reach out to me on social media and they're like, how, I'm really interested in fly fishing, but I have no idea where to like get started. And I'll just go on to like Facebook Marketplace and I'm like, here's some links. Like, here's, someone in Denver, like selling, this, for, $100 or whatever, rod and reel setup. And so, I'm trying to do anything that I can to help other people feel more welcomed in the space. I will never gatekeep. I will never, not share knowledge. I think it's so important for all of us to be able to get out there and enjoy this incredible land that we have in any way that you're looking to explore it. And so, again, this movement of creating a more inclusive environment is just so important. I'm really proud to be a part of it.
Yeah, I love it. No, I think that this is great. I'm looking at the Uncharted Outdoors women on here, and it's lots of all sorts of cool events, fly fishing meetups, flowers to fungi,
all the things.
Yeah, all this stuff. United Women. And I see United Colorado Women on the Fly, which again is a great group. So this is awesome. Well, I'll throw in one more too. Team USA. We've been interviewing some of the women's team. They're going to be actually. It's in in the U.S. The World Championships are in the U.S. in Idaho Falls this year. So they're going to be, and we've done a number of episodes with women guides and people on the team, and they got a chance to take home the gold, this year. So I feel like it's a kind of an awesome year to see all this coming together. But no, that helps a lot. I think that again, we could all do a better job. I always feel like too. Diversity, right? And not just women, just everybody, right? The more diverse the community of, people fishing and also like species on the water, right? Usually the more diverse species you have, the better. And I feel like it's the same way with us, with humans.
Yep, exactly.
And so I think we're getting there. We're working there. We're not quite there, just like the United States, right? This country, you feel like we were on track to be at a place of, very much, racism is out the door and all this stuff. But we still realize we have a lot of work to do. We still have a lot of work to do because it takes time. So, again, I'm a small step person. I like goal setting and say, hey, we're taking a small step. So I feel like, we're getting there and it's just going to take time.
Yep, absolutely.
So, no, it's good. It's good to hear. It's really terrible to hear those stories, but it's good to hear that it sounds like you're positive on your take on everything.
Yeah, you gotta kind of just, take those moments for what they are and move forward. I'm not gonna let, those kind of situations discourage me for something that I, love doing and I'm so passionate about. They're just, hopefully maybe I just caught someone on a bad day or something like that. But again, like I said, over the more recent years, it's just gotten so much better, just, overall with just how everyone is approaching not only just fly fishing, but the outdoor industry in general. There's more women being advertised versus men being advertised. And kind of going back to Intrepid there, I think it's so cool, when we started working together, they really wanted to get more women in their advertisement. And because, when you're, especially, when you're looking at, overlanding gear and things, it's mostly men and couples that are advertised, which can, feel a little, intimidating or, you're as a female solo, adventurer, you're like, well, how does this apply to me? And so, being able to work with Intrepid on, me being just that, a female solo adventurer, I've had so many other women reach out and they're like, okay, this solo setup is so cool. Like, it's very ideal for, someone who isn't partnered and someone who just wants to be able to go out and feel confident and comfortable with their gear out on their own.
Yeah, perfect. Good. Well, let's take it out here. You mentioned Intrepid, so we're going to take it out of here today. We're going to call this our fitness challenge as we get out of here, and so this one obviously presented by Intrepid Camp Gear. We'll have a link to take a look at some of this. I'm just kind of again on this looking at some of these rooftop tents, and there's a diversity of types. So the one we talked about, it reminds again the solo one. What's the name of the one you have there?
The Geo Solo.
Yeah, the Geo Solo. Yep, perfect. So we'll have that one in there. But let's just take it on here for the fitness. So if somebody's listening now and they want to, get their fitness level, kind of their health up, you mentioned something with weights. What are a couple other things you would tell somebody today listening, like thinking, man, they've been struggling. Maybe they've got some ailments. Maybe they've got a leg that's not feeling too good. What are you telling somebody to maybe like baby steps?
Yeah, I think honestly that the simplest things are one, walking. We all are so most of us are sitting every single day. I know I'm glued to a desk, and so just being able to just go out for a walk. Try to walk as much as possible. Just getting that vertical movement. Like, you don't need to go for a 5-mile jog or anything like that. Just simply getting in that easy walking movement. Low impact is key. Especially if you do have, some bone issues or anything like that, walking is just a really easy, low impact way to get some cardio movement in there. And then stretching, doing some yoga. If yoga sounds intimidating to you, that's okay. Just simple stretching to really help just elongate those muscles out, especially, after a day out on the river or, your hike or anything like that, making sure that you're, stretching out those muscles, so you can use them again the next day. But I think those are honestly two, just the easiest, most attainable things that you can do on a regular basis.
That is perfect. Yeah, the stretching is something I forget about too, but that's a good one. And are you stretching before and after sort of thing? Is that usually the best way to do it?
Yes, typically, not all the time. Need to be better with that, but you usually, before any activity, you should be stretching before and after. Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. Well, as we take it out of here, I've got a couple of random ones always. It's always fun to ask some of these questions. And you mentioned at the start, we've been, dogs is definitely, I've always had a love for dogs. And, it's been a couple years now since we've had one. So talk about your dog. It sounds like, did you say a blue heeler? What is the.
Yes, she's a blue heeler. So she's an Australian cattle dog.
So she's smart.
She's smart. She's very smart. She's very sassy. She's very stubborn. She is my little adventure companion. She is so cute. She's actually featured on the Intrepid website with me.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, yeah. If you go to the Geo Solo tent, she's on there with me.
Oh, cool.
Her name's Sundari. She's better known as Smooch, though, because she will try to French kiss you if you get close enough.
Oh, right.
But she is the best little pal. She just thrives in the outdoors. She lives for river days. I mean,
She's a swimmer.
she's a swimmer. You cannot keep her out of the water, so I can't take her fishing with me in the wintertime because that's just a recipe for disaster. But she loves being out on the water and just, being able to, come and adventure with me. She's so great.
Yeah. And how does she do up in the tent? So do you kind of carry? I guess she's not walking up the ladder, right? You carry her and throw up there.
No, no. I carry her up. She knows the deal. It's like her little princess palace. I call it for her, and she loves it because with a normal tent, we're not usually leaving the doors or windows open or whatnot when you're on the ground. But being elevated, I feel safer to be able to leave some of the windows open. And she loves it because she wants to be able to see outside. She doesn't do well when she can't see. So on the window on the kind of like the front side of the tent, the tallest side of the tent, I can leave that window open without letting elements in there, and she loves it.
That's sweet. That's sweet. Cool. So let's just stay on the gear. I love always talking about the gear a little bit. So on your fly fishing gear, we mentioned before, like some of the, lowest price gear is, highest quality sometimes out there. What are you using these days for like rod, reels, kind of all that stuff?
Yeah, so I'm still fishing with my Orvis Clearwater. That was the first fly rod that I ever had. It's a 9 foot 5 weight, which is perfect for Colorado water. It is honestly the best little rod. I mean, I do want to, upgrade. I do want to get a Euro-nymphing rod as well. That'll happen eventually, but this rod has just been so universal with all the water that I've been hitting. And, it's my first rod too, so I have a little attachment to it as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. So yeah, I think that 9 foot 5 weight, right? That's kind of your standard, and then you can kind of go out from there. What about waders? Are you a big wader person, or no? What's that look like? Because I guess you could fish Colorado without waders, right? A lot of the
Yeah,
year.
this time in Colorado, it's so warm that honestly standing in the water feels so great. So I do a lot of wet wading. However, on my road trip, I've been using my waders because the water's, weather has been a little bit different out here. And I will say I am definitely due for new waders. The inside of them, there's probably thousands of patches at this point, and I'm pretty sure there's a new leak in them from this trip. So I think we're due for some new waders.
What's your brand? What have you been using all these years? What's held up for you?
Yeah, I've had these Patagonia waders. I bought them off Craigslist from a woman who wore them like 2 times and, sold them to me so cheap. And I'm like, I love being able to, recycle gear. And so these have been amazing. And the amount of times that, I've patched them or, for patches that I just truly cannot fix myself, Patagonia is very familiar with seeing my face and they're like, you sure you don't want to just get new waders? And I'm like, I feel like I've got a couple more seasons left from these.
You're the perfect Patagonia person, ambassador, because I mean that's what's great about Patagonia, and we love Patagonia as well. They have great stuff, and we had actually interviewed Yvon Chouinard, the founder of Patagonia, in a couple years ago, and he talked about just what you're talking about. Like he is all about conservation and what can we do to save our home planet, right? And that's part of it, the patching, the fact that you don't have to throw your waders away, that you can go to Patagonia and they'll fix them as many times as you need to, right? It sounds like you've utilized that.
Oh, I sure have.
Awesome. Good. Well, we got that. Let's take it out of here with just, I always love to hear a little on music. It sounds like now, have you listened to other podcasts before? Or are you brand new to the whole podcasting listening space?
I've listened to podcasts for many years and my listening has been kind of all over the place. I actually, one of the original podcasts I've listened to is Tom over at Orvis. Just He's the best. So he's kind of my initial introduction into podcasting. And so again, I don't listen to them as often as I'd like just because, I don't have a regular commute or anything like that, but would love to, just like dive more into it. And again, just being able to, listen to some of your episodes out on my drive. It's nice to hear those really fun interviews.
Yeah. It's always the challenge because we have so many, now episodes with, I think we're over 800, but just finding the right topic, right? But if you were there thinking like, what would be the good topic? It sounds like, would it be you're going to a new area and maybe searching for that area? Or what would be the resource you would love? Like, let's just take it to where you are. What do you think would help you have a better day on the water? Would it be like somebody talking about that river area or maybe techniques? What would be a bigger thing?
Yeah, I think honestly, just being able to kind of talk about the environment a little bit more. So I can kind of, be able to understand like what to expect because, there's been certain times where, you can do some research online and all of a sudden you show up to a body of water or whatever and you're like, oh, this is not quite what I was expecting this to be. And so, and, also throwing the technique in there, technique is really important for, different spaces, different places that you're going to. But I think, just podcast space can be so helpful for that general research, especially, out on a trip like this where, I've never fished in Canada before. So being able to, look for different podcast episodes on, fishing different waters in Alberta or, over in British Columbia where I'm driving through in a couple of days, I think is just really helpful.
Yeah, that's right. And where are you you're near Calgary?
So yeah, I'm in Canmore.
Canmore. Yeah, gotcha. Okay. Yeah, we don't have as much. We've definitely done some up in kind of Alberta, but not quite as much as down south, obviously. But one of our best, we do have, if you're ever into the Stillwater, just we always love to plug Phil Rowley. We actually have,
Yes.
yeah, he's one of our Stillwater, actually hosts our Littoral Zone podcast. So if you ever want some of the good stuff there, definitely check out Phil's podcast that he does in our network. It's a good one. But then he's from Alberta, which is great. He lives up in Alberta. Good. Okay. Well, we mentioned podcasts. So would you rather give us a podcast episode other than Orvis that or a topic or actually show, or do you have some music? What do you listen to more on the road? Do you want to give us as we take it out of here?
Music I listen to is kind of all over the place. It's funny. I actually on social media had posted a collab playlist on Spotify, which was really fun to experience because I tend to kind of get stuck on, a certain kind of genre of music and whatnot. So it was just nice to hear. I, asked people who came across my social media to like, all right, put in your top 5 favorite songs. And that playlist is all over the place, let me tell you. And so it's been really fun to just like listen to, just all of these different genre of music from classic rock to rap to, some more pop stuff on the radio to some music I've never heard from before. It's been really fun.
Oh, wow. That's a great idea. So you basically go to Spotify, create what do you call it? Like a playlist.
Yeah, playlist.
And then you go out to people on social and you say, hey, go here and add your songs. And and then now can we find that playlist somewhere and listen to it?
Yeah, you can. Yeah. It's just, if you look me up on Spotify, it's just Mckenzie Johns and it's called Road Trip Collab, I believe.
Gotcha. So that's cool. So we can look you up.
Yeah.
We could look Mckenzie. And this will be a good as we take it out of here, Mckenzie Johns, and just search for that, and that'll pull up if you search, I guess it'll pull up your playlist or your.
It'll pull up my profile and then all the playlists that I've created. So you'll see the Road Trip Collab one there on my profile.
Okay, good. No, that's a great idea. We'll throw that in the show notes so people can listen to something. What do you think what's one song or group out there that sticks out right now that you remember that's on that playlist?
Oh gosh, I think there's some Kansas on there, which honestly reminds me of the days when we'd in the garage with my dad while he's tinkering tools and listening to Kansas on the radio.
Right.
It was nice to hear that on there. I was like, wow, this is a bit of a flashback for me. This is pretty cool.
Love that. Yeah, they had some big songs, but I can't remember any. Yeah, so we'll try to find a famous Kansas song also for the show notes, and that'll be great. Cool, Mckenzie. Well, I think that's good for today. I think we've definitely covered a few things. Any last words you want to leave people with as we head out of here today that you're thinking about, like fly fishing wise? What are you fired up other than this trip? Are you thinking ahead? Are you planning that far out, or do you just kind of wait and take it where you end up on the road?
I wanted to get more fishing in Montana actually this week. We'll see if I can make that happen with my work schedule. We might have a sick day here later this week, but my summer is pretty booked up already with just people coming to visit and backpacking trips and everything. And so it's amazing though. This trip has been just really opened my eyes to the different kinds of water and opportunity there is for fly fishing up north. And I'm already thinking about how I can get out here for an extended period of time later next summer because it's still kind of rainy mud season. The fishing is decent, but everyone I keep talking to, they're like, you got to come later in the summer. And I'm like, all right, I think I got to plan another trip now next year.
That's right. And you drove, how far of the drive is it from Boulder to there?
About, I think, just under 2,000 miles, I
Oh,
think.
wow. So
Yeah.
did you drive it from there?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So this is great. So wow. So you did which is crazy because this is a good perspective because Alaska from where we're leaving, in Oregon up to, just north of Anchorage, it's like 2,500 miles. So, and I thought that, so you've taken now, how long did it take you to do these 2,000 miles? How many days? How many hours?
So I did, I think, 8 full days it took me to get out here. But that was me stopping. I was, camping in Wyoming for about 3, 4 days, making, Montana was kind of like,
Taking your time.
yeah, I was taking my time really. And then also my way from where was I camping in the Whitefish area? I ended up driving up through British Columbia because I wanted to hit the Trans Canada Highway because it's just such a beautiful drive. And then I dipped through Banff down into Canmore. So I kind of took the more scenic route, which added on a few extra miles there, but totally worth it. Any opportunity where you can take the scenic route, I always recommend.
So wow, you're doing it. Yeah, and I think 8 days. That's the more time, obviously, the better, right? If you could set aside a month or longer, right? We would all do that. So good. Okay. Awesome, Mckenzie. Well, I think we'll send everybody out to MTN Johns on Instagram. They can follow you and check out your stuff. And yeah, this has been great today. Appreciate all your insight into Intrepid Camp Gear and kind of your experience around fly fishing. And yeah, thanks for all the time. We'll definitely keep in touch.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave.
You can connect with Mckenzie right now on Instagram, MTN Johns. Follow her and you can check out all the travels. This has been a great one. Hope you enjoyed our little exploration of cars. I think we covered just about everything today, and we're going to be excited for that next episode right around the corner. If you haven't already, you can subscribe to this podcast right now. If you want to take more, we mentioned Wet Fly Swing Pro. You can go to wetflyswing.com/pro, and you can sign up for our next launch, which is right around the corner, and we'll keep you updated for that as it comes live and your chance to get involved in our close-knit membership group. Thanks again for stopping in today. Hope you have a great morning, a great afternoon, or a great evening, wherever you are on the planet, in the world, and we'll talk to you very soon.